So I'm Dan Petrock, faculty liaison to distance learning and math professor at DMAC. Thanks for joining us. As you'll see in the chat, if you'd be willing to chat in what math you teach and your familiarity with MyMathLab, that would be awesome, just to get a better picture of where people are at. I think we know most people in the room, at least some of us do. Our goal here is to just show you some things with MyMathLab that you may or may not have seen before, some different ways to integrate it, utilize some of the features. We also have Tim and Carly from Pearson that are going to show us some maybe things we haven't seen, some new features that we could use. So the flow, I think we're going to start with Heather, I believe, right, Heather?
Yes.
So, and when you go, just introduce yourself and do your thing. I encourage everybody to chat in as we're doing this, and I think it'd be fine to answer questions within our little 10, we're trying to do about 10-minute times with each of us. So Heather's going to be talking about using MyMathLab to have students submit work within MyMathLab, their written work. David's going to be talking about how he uses MyMathLab for assessment. I'm going to be talking about just ways to integrate it within the LMS and other ways we kind of try to deep link things and utilize some of the features within online and web enhanced learning. And then Tim and Carly will be surprising us and bedazzling us at the end. So
I had a surprise. So.
surprise. So again, go ahead and chat in questions as you're having. You can also raise your hand. I'm going to kill my mic and my camera, and I encourage everybody else besides Heather right now to do that. And then if you want to talk, raise your hand. We can acknowledge you or chat it in there. And I know Kate's moderating, and I think David's got it. He just raised his hand physically there. That was weird.
Yeah, well, I did a little bit of both. Kate, before we get going, can you make, there you go, make some of us moderators so we're ready to go when it's our turn. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to shut off, and I'll turn it over to Heather.
Okay, so I'm Heather Podleck, and I am full-time math faculty at the Boone campus. I've only been there since August, but I was an adjunct for 5 years before that. In case there's any doubt, the accent is Australian, so that's where my accent comes from. So I'm going to be demonstrating today how you can use a show work feature or a window within the Pearson MyMathLab. So share my screen here. And where are we? Here we are here. So I'm kind of I'm going to start by being instructor, and I'm going to show you how you would set up an assignment, and then I'll kind of go into student mode so you can see what it looks like for students, and then I'll go back to instructor and how you would go about grading. So I think everyone can see my screen now, right? And so I'm going to start here. I'm going to demonstrate using a problem from Mat 141 or finite math. And then if we have time, I can look at some other problems, maybe something from Math for Liberal Arts as well. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to edit a homework assignment that I want to assign for my Mat 141 students. Okay, so say we're in chapter 2, okay, in finite math class. And one of the things we do in chapter 2 is we solve systems of linear equations using the Gauss-Jordan method. So here's a homework problem where students are asked to use row operations to solve a system, and then they've got to select either there's one solution and they would give the solution, or infinitely many solutions, they would give the form of the solution, or there is no solution. So agreed, the student has a lot of steps that they need to do to get to this point. So suppose you want the students to show you that working, okay? All you need to do is come down here and check this box, student to show work. In conjunction with that, I like to use the under question help here, there's add instructor tip. And in here, you can type really specific instructions, directions on exactly what work you want them to show, okay? So, you know, for this particular problem here, I want them to show all their working. I want them to start with the augmented matrix. I want them to make sure they're telling me the row operations they're using. And if you're teaching this class face-to-face, then even though this is online homework that the students are doing at home, you can have them, just submit this in class. So you can really use this feature in the same way that previously you might, if you're one of those people who aren't using MyMathLab homework at the moment and you set problems from the textbook. This is kind of the same idea. You have a whole set of problems that you want the students to work on, but there might be a couple of problems that you want them to give the full working for and submit that in class. So this is one way of kind of selecting certain problems that you want them to submit work in class. Now, if it's COVID-19 and you're now meeting virtually, or if you are teaching this class online, then they can't submit in class. But what you can have the students do is take a photo of their working using the Cam Scanner app. They then email an image to themselves. You have to get them to use the email it as a .jpeg because they're going to upload this working in Pearson and it needs to be an image file. So not the PDF option, but Cam Scanner has the JPEG file option. So get them to send it to themselves as JPEG, download it on their computer by emailing it to themselves, and then they can upload it. So when we go into student mode, I'll show you how to do that. But you can give instructions here. You can change this and tell them to use the Cam Scanner app rather than submitting in class. Okay, so that's really all that you need to do. Check this box here to show work. I recommend, giving specific directions if you want. You can also include there like number of points that you're going to allocate for the working, and that's all that you need to do to kind of make that particular question a show work question.
Hey, Heather.
Yes.
This is Tim. And while you're here, I just have one other thing to show you because there's about 5 ways to do this. Can you scroll up a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, right where it says view assignment details, that link, can you click that? Because I just want to show you one quick thing too in here that people aren't aware of. So do you see it right above the questions? And your list of questions there on the, yeah, right there. You just went over it.
Yes.
So if you go here, this is another place you can turn it on. You can see the show work button. But scroll to the right. There's something here that many people aren't aware of. If you've used MyMathLab below or before, you know how much the students depend on those learning aids. And we added a new place here where you can turn it off at the question level. So you can have some questions with help and then some questions without. It's right there in the middle there. And that's a recommended experience because a lot of them, they don't realize how much they depend on it. And giving them an experience inside MyMathLab where they actually have some questions without help gives you some insight and them as well as how well they're learning it. So just something I wanted to show real fast. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. So once you've selected which problems you want, that's kind of a good thing to know that you can take off the help if you want that. And then you do need to give some consideration here under settings for show work questions, how that credit is going to be assigned for those questions. I prefer to just manually score completely any of the work questions that I've asked the student to show work for. So that means that the students will have 0 points allocated for those questions until the due date has passed and I go in and grade them. But you can see there's other options here. You could, for example, automatically they get 50% credit if they've got the correct answer, and then say you're going to go manually score their show work. Okay, so there's options there, but students need to be aware of that because, for example, say 50% of your points were questions with show work. When the students finish that homework assignment, it's only going to, and they've got everything correct, it's only going to show them at 50%. So if they're used to kind of having everything graded, then they might kind of get concerned about that. Hey, it's showing me I have everything correct. Why is my grade only showing at 50%? Okay, so that's kind of how you can do show work. So now I'm going to change here and I'm going to pretend that I am a student. And so you can see how this would look like from a student viewpoint. So as you can see, when they open their assignment, any of the questions that you've asked them to submit working for will have in red and in brackets SW. So that will kind of be clear which questions require them to write their working out and which questions don't. When they open a question here that's show work, If you're utilizing that instructor tip, that tip will pop up when they open a question, okay? They will have to close that to work on the question. So you'll also kind of want to tell your students if you're using that. It hasn't really disappeared. Here under question help, view instructor tip, they can view that at any time when they're working on the problem, okay? But that's one thing that you will probably want to tell students, hey, I can't see the instructor tip. What working do you want me to show? Now, if you're teaching face-to-face and the students are just going to write out on paper and submit in class, then that's basically, you know, they'll know for that question they have to do that. But now if you're meeting virtually or if you are teaching online, then up here is a show work button, or what I call the show work window. And this is where the students would actually upload an image of their written working. Okay, so they would click here, that would open the window. And then they want to click here on an insert image icon. They would go locate on their computer where they have downloaded that particular working, select the image file, and then click save here. The red outline around that show work button changes to green, and that's how they know that something is saved in there, okay? Of course, they're also going to answer the question here. So let's just put something in here. Okay, so they'll be able to tell if they have the answer correct, but you know, you'll actually have to go and grade what the particular show work is. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like from the student viewpoint there. They'll know they've got something in there when it's green there. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, that's all I'm going to answer as a student. And then let's come back here, and now I'm going to go back to being an instructor and what happens with grading. So I'm going to come into the grade book here, and I will have, here's the assignment here, and you can see it doesn't have a score yet because I have to manually grade any of those show work questions. So as instructor, you'll come in, here's the question, you'll be able to see if they have the answer correct. And then you're going to come up and review what they put in the show work window here. You can put comments in here. Okay, so you can use the mouse and kind of circle things, or use your mouse to draw. Use this text and you can type things in. So, you know, maybe for this particular student, they started with their augmented matrix, they're showing their row, and you can zoom in. If you've got a zoom in thing, you can see this more clearly. They've shown their operations, but maybe I wanted them to show one more step here, okay? I wanted them to show one more step with the diagonal being 1. Oops, yep, being 1. Okay, so you can put comments in here that save, and then when the students go into their gradebook area on Pearson, they can come and view those comments. So if you were doing, and then you assign the score here, so I had 0 points, right, because I set it so that I'm manually grading the entire question, so 0 points allocated, and I can decide how many points I'm going to give them for that particular question. If it's face-to-face and you're not having students actually upload but just submit in class, then you just come in here and assign that particular points there. Okay, so how are we going for time? Do I still have some time here? Or do we want to open it up for questions at this point?
About 4 or 5 minutes left.
Okay. Okay, so let's come back here into the assignment. Let's remove my... and talk about a few other kinds of questions. So here's another question. You know, decide whether these are inverses of one another. And so, you know, if you've set up your homework and it's unlimited attempts, students are only going to need a maximum of 2 clicks here. So if you want to really make your students accountable and have some questions there that they're showing you how they did it and they're not just clicking, ask them to show work. Again, I recommend using that add instructor tip. You can say, type in here, justify your answer by showing or working. You can make it worth 4 points out of 5, something like that. Let's go ahead. Here's another similar question, something from Math for Liberal Arts, where we do a voting chapter and they're looking at finding the winner using preference ballots. And here's another question where it's just asking who is declared the winner using a method, pairwise comparison method. Again, they're just clicking on who is the winner. If you want them to actually show their reasoning and working of applying that particular method, you can just check student to show work, and then you can give them some directions here as to exactly what you want them to show there. In the math for finite math, I have the students, when we do simplex method, I show them how to use the solver add-in in Excel. So I usually have a question in there. I can select a question, and then for that particular question, I can tell my students, hey, I want you to solve this particular question using the solver add-in. And then in the show work window, I get them maybe to copy and paste some output from Excel so that I know that they're using the solver add-in, and I can check, and they're accountable for the fact that they've solved that particular question using the solver add-in. In terms of just other questions, I think it's a really great way to set up your homework assignments. You can have your beginning questions that are really leading, particularly if you've got a method that requires a lot of steps. You can have initial problems that are just dealing, say, with one step, or you can have a problem like this one that's kind of leading them through with the steps. And maybe that question doesn't require, any working to be shown because it's kind of leading them through with the steps. But then you have a subsequent question that, it's a question where they're just entering in an answer. This one's not the same method, but this is using linear programming. And so that's a question where you could say, okay, this is only asking you to enter in the answer, but I'm going to get you here to show me all the working. Maybe you have a template that the students use to solve that linear programming using graphical method, and you can have them to follow that method there. So hopefully everybody's got a little something out of this. I know that in terms of math instructors here, we've got people who are not using MyMathLab. So hopefully if you're not using MyMathLab, you can see that you really set up a homework assignment pretty similar to what you would do if you're setting problems from a textbook. Select some problems, and then you can select some of them to be showing working. I think Tim just showed us that you can easily turn off the question help. That's available for particular questions as well. So if you haven't used it before, students have some help here with you an example or help me solve it. You can turn that off for a show work problem so that the students are really kind of on their own there. And then if you are already using MyMathLab, then, this is kind of a way that you can, start to make your students accountable and them to be using a particular method, particularly if you've got online students. You don't know what they're using to solve that. Maybe they're, finding the inverse on their calculator, graphing calculator. So this is really a way for making them accountable and checking that they're using the method that you expect them to be using and that they're prepared to do that if you're going to ask them to do that on the exam.
Hey, Heather.
Yes.
This is Tim again. Just one more thing, because you're on a screen that makes it real quick. If you scroll up for me, the other thing that I'm running into a lot, especially with COVID, can you change the chapter to any of the other chapters for me?
Yes.
A lot of people are struggling with is, you got to record your lecture or find things that you can really help on the teaching side. All you have to do in here is switch that button to media there, and you'll pull up the media for the content. And you could use this as far as a way to build an assignment that's more of a learning assignment where you bring in videos, short little snippets. It breaks it down, into, you can direct them to the book. And so that's become a really helpful thing right now for people trying to prep and recreate the wheel, because all that media is there that's tied right to your book. Thanks.
Okay, so I don't know if there's any questions or if we're going to.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. That was great. David had one question for Tim, or Tim, I don't know if you see that in the chat or not. If you want to, he's asking, how does a lockdown, since you lockdown browser for MyMathLab or any lockdown browser, I guess I'm assuming, affect that show image or show work feature?
Yeah, I had another instructor ask me. I think because it's within the MyMathLab domain, it's fine. It works just fine. If not, what I would think the workaround would just be basically I have to talk to my tech people on what domain to add to make that pop up. But because it's a part, it's just a piece inside MyMathLab, it's allowed through the lockdown browser. And you can turn that lockdown browser on in the course settings.
Okay. Good.
And while we're on that, how about, so can you use that lockdown browser, your lockdown browser with StatCrunch?
That's a deeper question. I wanna say the same answer there, but I'd have to actually go because it's more of a separate site. So I'd have to go get some information on that.
Okay, that'd be
My understanding, if I remember from experimenting, Dan, is if the question is built with a StatCrunch feature already in it, it'll work.
okay.
But I like to just let my students have access to StatCrunch in all the questions, which means they need to have a window open,
Right.
because not all the questions have the StatCrunch feature built into them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you run into problems.
That's the logic I was thinking as well.
So it sounds like there may be a capability where you can create an exception based on domain for lockdown browser. Is that correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something we'd like to play around with. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for Heather? What she has also made a great video. Heather, I don't know if you'd be willing to go out and find I think you put it on YouTube even, right?
Yeah,
Kind of
it's in the
demoing
Teams
it.
area.
So I kind of was digging through Teams, and I think it got buried because there's been so many
Oh.
chats after it. So if
Okay.
you'd be willing to find that link, just drop it in the chat for everybody right now while we're,
Sure.
and then also maybe even find your old post on Teams and throw it back out there again or repost, just so to follow up. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yep. Sure.
All right, should we transition to David now?
We can try. My connection's a little shady right now, so hopefully it isn't a problem. Okay, and those are my kids, if you're wondering what that is. I'm not being robbed or burgled or anything.
Hey, those are popular things on TV shows, right? With the famous people's kids showing up. So I think this is totally appropriate.
Okay, is that showing up and working?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about MyMathLab and assessments with Blackboard. A lot of the great things that Heather just talked about, you can pull into your assessments, so that's fantastic. And so she stole half my thunder. So no, but it's great because what you do for homework you can use on the assessments a lot. So in a real kind of lower end approach here, simply just creating homeworks in MyMathLab. You can import those right into Blackboard, and so that makes it easy for students to access. So the integration is real nice. So this is an example of Math 110, the signature course. So like here's a link right from the publisher for the textbook. Here's some videos. These are all right from the publisher as well. And then here's a homework. And so you add stuff if you're unfamiliar in terms of any assessment you create in MyMathLab. If you are in Blackboard, you can come up to Tools, maybe. It's a little slow for me. There we go. And we click on Pearson MyLab and Mastering Content. And there you go. And it lists everything that's in your course. And you can, so like here's section 7.6 homework. I could click that and just submit, and then that homework and that icon will show up in Blackboard. So that's a way to add any homework, any quiz, any test you create in Blackboard into your course. So that's just a real nice integration in terms of any sort of assessment. In terms of exams, lots of different things to do with exams, and it kind of depends on your need. If you're doing online, your needs are a little bit different than summer, how we're doing things virtually. So let me show you an example of what I'm doing with in terms of those bigger assessments like an exam.
Hey,
and
is anybody else
I'm
anybody else not seeing the video? I don't think the video's following you, David.
No, I just have a blank. I just have the set page.
All right. Oh, yep. It just kicked my video out. So let me share it again. Sorry.
And
it's always like that.
And that integration piece you were just kind of demoing that we didn't get to see, I'm going to be showing that anyway, so don't worry about redoing that if you don't want to.
Yeah, fantastic. There we go. Looks like my connection's better too. So you go 2 months, no problems, and then you got to present. And right?
You went 2 months without problems? Oh, come on.
Yeah, I did. Except one day where my entire internet was down. But anyhow, all right. Can you see that now? Is that showing up?
It says exam 1.
Yes. Okay. And then so this is sort of an alternative approach to what Heather showed. I really like Heather's approach. I've never personally tried that, but I think I might try that now. But in terms of assessments, if you're trying to think of giving exams for especially an online class, I give them a couple different days because they're online students, so they don't necessarily meet the same time every week or whatever. And so the way I've been doing it is, especially since our testing centers are closed, create my exam, I import it into Blackboard, say, hey, you have a week. And then I've added this, you need to show your written work. And the way I've been doing that is just adding a item where they can submit their work in Blackboard. And so that's another way to capture their work for an assessment. So that's a different way to do it. Though I kind of like Heather's approach. That's pretty slick.
Were we supposed to see work? Because I just seen a black screen.
No, I'm not showing any work.
Okay. Okay.
Is it? Okay.
I think it just went out for a second there. It's fine now, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Another thing with assessment, which I encourage you to dabble in, is if I go into, let's see here, make sure I'm in the right class. Yes, I'm in a stats class here. All right. Is that exam? Oh no, because that's a different window. That's not showing up, is it? Okay. Let's try this. Here we go. Let's share this. Okay. So this is an exam I made. And let's see here. Where'd it go? Okay. Aha. So this is a custom question I made, and then I did it as an essay response. And so here I'm just trying to ask them questions about, define what these variables are, and do that. So that's an example of some things you can do with assessments in MyMathLab as well. That I encourage you to look at, create those custom questions. So in stats, for me, having them know the symbols is very, very important. And so I've created this question so they could write out what they are. I also created just other custom questions. Let's see here if it, like here's another custom question I wrote, and this is actually from an old district final. And you can import images into your custom questions if you want. So this is a box plot. I created the image and imported that in. So that's another thing you can do with assessments as well. So if you're not really feeling the questions they have, you can create your own. And with a lot more work, you can create custom questions, so they're pooled as well. So they use so the data switches for every student, and so
Okay.
it's not the same for everybody.
Okay,
So
David,
I'm not going to. Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Do they do the work and then take a picture of it and submit it to you as a JPEG like they did in MyMathLab?
No, I do that a little differently, and that's where they take a picture of all of their work, and I have them submit it as one single PDF. So that's a little different. I'm sorry, I'm not going into in-depth details. I just wanted to kind of talk about the possibilities and different things. And if you really want to dig in and say, okay, well, how do I do this thing you mentioned, then definitely reach out to me and I can help you guys with that. I just wanted to show just kind of the different options. So in terms of assessment, that's kind of all I had. Just kind of showing you the different possibilities there, talking about it. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, David. That especially, I know a lot of people are, especially that assessment piece. I think that's one thing. Like, I know you're super willing to share all those things, and the beautiful thing is, for instance, you're the faculty lead in Math 110. You pretty much have built exams that can be imported and used by their faculty. They can look at your stuff and all that. So it's great to have those features, and people can like just play around with them, right? And try them, and then reach out to you if they want more specifics, and keep moving along that continuum. Like you said, like Heather shows us this new thing, and we're like, oh, well, maybe we could do that now, right? And that might
Yeah.
be another thing we could try. And I love I think it's great the way you're integrating that into the assessments, and so thank you.
Well, speaking of that, just one quick thing to add, in terms of sharing, when you set up any assignment, whether it's homework or exams, one of the last things you can click is allow other instructors to import. I always click that, and then if you don't have to load my entire class, if you just wanted to copy and load up one assignment, I could give you my MyMathLab username, and then you could search and then pull up and copy that one assignment and all that if you want. You don't have to grab the whole entire course. So that's a nice, easy way to share assessments as well.
Cool. I think Sam just raised her hand. She might have a question.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My question is the best way to give feedback on exams. When I did the exams for Math 157 on Blackboard, students would submit PDFs of their work, and then I would grade that, and then it's kind of tricky on how to give them specific feedback on the problems that they missed. I mean, it takes a lot of time to write it up. I wondered what other people are doing. I know Dan does after everyone has turned in the exam, he puts a video out there of the key. So I know that that's one option. What is there anything else that people are doing to give feedback on exams?
So when I had using the show work window, like you saw me in there, I could put feedback in the show work window. But for my stats students face-to-face, I actually had them submit the PDF like you're saying, and it was in a Dropbox on Blackboard. So when I went, if you assign points for that, or maybe even if you don't, you can actually type in feedback there. So I would put a little bit of feedback in there in the actual Dropbox itself.
Okay, so kind of like so I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing with the Dropbox, but is it kind of like when you assign a discussion post and you can see the students answer, and then in the little box you can write feedback?
Feedback, yes, yeah, it looks basically just like that. So I would just type in a few, like question 5, and then you used Z critical value when it should have been T, or yeah, just kind of minor things like that is what I would do.
Okay, that's kind of what I did. I know that when they turn in the homework, and then you're grading it at the very bottom of that screen, there's like a grading feedback. And so what I was doing is I was typing in, like I would write myself notes as I was grading their exam. And then sometimes if it wasn't a lot of notes, I would just type it in. But if it was a lot of notes, then I would actually just take a picture of my notes and put in the image of that. But it's still, I mean, when you have like this semester, I'm going to have, 2 sections of stats. That's a lot of tests to grade and
Yeah,
write.
it's worth doing a video solutions like what Dan does if you have a lot, and maybe just putting minor things in there with the points that just so it's clear what points they got maybe.
Yeah. I wonder, maybe a form. Maybe I could like make a form for each kid, you know?
A rubric, Dan.
Yeah, maybe something like that. And then make notes. That might be easier. I just felt like it was just taking me forever. Like when I'm grading paper quizzes, it's easy for me to write comments on their paper, and then I can tell them how many points they got, and then put the total at the top, and it's done and it's easy. But when I was grading, this is the first time that I've done stats online, and it was just taking a lot of time to give them feedback, and I can't imagine doing that for 2 sections. I only had 1 section, and now if I do it for 2, that's like 50 tests. It's a lot.
Yeah. I think not really a great answer to this, unfortunately. Like Heather said, typing stuff in. Dan's approach is really nice, and that's very efficient.
And lazy.
But in all honesty, Dan, like I know a science teacher. We've talked about this, a science teacher colleague, and she said I just don't even bother with the feedback because 95% of them won't even read it, and so I just always tell them, if you have questions, contact me.
I would agree with that. I've done like Dan and done solutions videos, and then I go back and look at the number of views, and there's very few views. So I feel like I give them a couple of, a little bit of feedback on their exam, and then if they want more, the video's there for them to go to. But my experience would be the same as David's, that there's very few students that do go and do that. So it's not worth your time to be putting in all that feedback when hardly any of those students are possibly looking at it. So I think if you've got a lot of students, you are better off having a general video or other that they can go to.
Okay. I did have trouble. I was worried because, especially at the beginning of the semester. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So I was also having trouble at the beginning, especially of the semester, when kids, you don't know if they're dropping or what, but they would just not do their test. You'd have a handful of kids, and then you'd have to email them, hey, are you going to take your test? Like, what do you get? And so I didn't want to put the video out there for kids that had turned it in when some people hadn't turned it in. And so you wait a week, and it's like, then they don't even care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are easy to grade.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, this is Tim, and this may be similar to what Dan and Dave's talking about, but I have a lot of instructors use screencast, and they'll just, whatever is on their screen, and they just talk over it, and they'll use that as a way, because you can do, when they have in the help in MyMathLab, they'll ask your instructor. That's how she communicates back and forth to the students. So she'll do a quick screencast of her working out the problem and send it right back. You could do the same thing to review tests.
Oh, I like that. So can you just attach? So after you make the screencast?
Yeah, you save it as a link. They just save it. It'll save as a link. You don't have to save it to your desktop, and it's free. It's called Screencast-O-Matic.
Yeah, I think I've used that before.
That same instructor contacted me one summer. She was panicked. She went to a new textbook, and you can embed links inside our e-text. She had over 600 examples of those screencasts where she actually worked out examples inside the e-text, inside MyMathLab.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a quick, easy little tool. I use it all the time.
Screencast.
Yeah, Screencast-O-Matic.
And then
so you do the same thing with Kaltura.
Yeah,
Blackboard.
Kaltura bought Screencast or uses their same engine, and it's embedded right into Blackboard. And I'll show that feature on how to grade, and I'll, when I'm my little spot, I'll just pull that up real quick and show you how you might be able to use that. And I see Mary has her hand up, so I don't know if we want to let her
Oh,
chime
thank
in.
you.
quick.
I just wanted to mention I use something called, it's a PDF annotator, and it's by Grahl, Grahl. And when I open up the annotator, then I can open up about I usually do about 5 or 6 tests at a time, and all their student tests come up, and I can write right on it. And then I save it as a corrected version, and that's what I send back through Blackboard.
Cool. Do you want to go ahead and put that in the chat if you would, Mary?
Sure, sure.
So good questions. I'm gonna try to, and thank you, David, for bringing that up. I know assessment's been up front and center ever since this has happened, and how to use MyMathLab. So thank you for that. I'm gonna probably try to abbreviate mine as much as I can, because I don't think I'm gonna show a lot of unique things. So I'm just gonna hop in there. Here, I'll turn my webcam on so you can at least see me. And let's see here. I'll see if I can share my screen. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so
Yeah.
all I'm going to do is, David was trying to demo it. I'll demo it again really quick because it didn't quite come through. Essentially, all I'm talking about is how to just embed the content from MyLab. With our online courses, we obviously try to create a learning path for the students, try to guide their learning kind of on a Bloom's taxonomy design. So you kind of go from just passive to more active, right, in application, synthesis, evaluation. So the videos that come from the publisher, as you can see, we can embed those directly in here. Honestly, any content in MyLab can be directly embedded into Blackboard. So since there is so many resources out there, right, it allows the faculty to kind of help guide the student through what's the most important. We know time is valuable. Which things should we put in there? We obviously have you can link to any. The building block also has the ability for linking to specific assignments like David's shown, or specific elements. And all you have to do on that is once you've synced your course with MyLab, which anybody who's using MyLab hopefully is doing that now, because we sync our grade books. But if you go under tools there, Pearson, this is what David was trying to show. It didn't quite show up, I think. And so you just go to tools, Pearson, and then you can click on any specific item, any homework, and then it'll create a direct link, and it looks something like this, either the e-text or the home or a specific assignment. So that's what they look like as far as directly linking students in their learning path. The other thing is they have animations and other learning objects that you can directly link to. I'm going to use an example for one of our discussions here in statistics. They've got a little Java applet that we're using to help them investigate kind of the law of large numbers or distributions. And so here's a little StatCrunch animation that's built into Pearson. We have students go through this. They can run through the applet and the instructions, and then that's actually embedded into a discussion, right? So it gives them, here, do this, report this, talk about this. What do you think the law of large number is, right? So you can use their learning objects into discussions. For instance, every student can have kind of a unique experience, but they're using it to develop conceptual understanding of something. So as far as embedding, for those of you that use MyLab, I don't think this is anything new. If you use a signature course, you're kind of used to this, but I know we have a few people who are brand new to MyLab. And I know this is the design tension. I think Tim has been expressing that, this design tension, how much do we put in MyLab and how much do we put in the LMS, right? And so there's great tools there, and it's awesome. Unfortunately, as soon as I click this link, I'm out of Blackboard, right? And now I got to figure out a way to get them back, because I've got this really important thing I want them to do next, right? So this is the design tension of where things are. What do we put where? Unfortunately, if someone comes in here and looks at this online class, this link will tell them there's a homework assignment for them to do, but anybody who does not actually teach the course or has the MyMathLab access can't see what's going on there. So this is unfortunately can become a negative because the course will look empty. So that's why we want to really try to be intentional about putting the MyLab content into Blackboard. And when we make our maps of our curriculum, we can show like, here are the learning objects, here's how we teach, learn, and assess these competencies, and kind of and keep that up front and center. So I think I was very thankful. I remember having a conversation many years ago with Pearson, and they were leaning hard, essentially pulling everybody out of their LMSs and doing everything on their site. But they made a wise decision and said, oh, we should probably play nicely with all the learning management systems because this is the mandate. They have to show all of this learning within the LMS, and students are going to be there because we have lots of, this is an OER resource. This is, created by the faculty member. We have assessments and discussions built right into the LMS. So they did a great job of creating that tool to help us link that. So the other thing you're talking about, Sam, I think here is an example of an assignment that's graded. Somebody uploaded it looks like a PDF, and this is what they're talking about. You can ink over these things and then save those, and then the students can see feedback. I believe that is on assignments. I don't believe that is on tests. And if somebody correct me if that's wrong. But if it's an assignment, you can ink over there this, because it's essentially using a Dropbox technology with this inking capability. So I'm going to stop sharing. And questions. Okay, Gail says that is correct. All right. So any questions on that little brief thing? I wanted to really shorten it up as much as I could about integrating just their content, using anything from their media. Tim, while you're on the thing, we've had a desperate plea to find a direct link to StatCrunch from within the tool. That would be wonderful if you ever had any say.
Oh, I'll put it on a list. Yeah.
Say again.
I'll put it on a list. I can get to the math team.
That would be awesome. Because, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just posted a video in the chat as well. Another thing just to mention in terms of embedding, and showed how to add an element within a folder, but just because it's in your folder doesn't mean it's in your gradebook. So there's another step you have to do to add that content into your gradebook. So I posted a video I made about how to add MyLab content to your gradebook.
Cool.
So that's in the chat.
Yeah, and I know I've made videos and stuff that are in the math community. I think one of the tasks this summer is we're trying to port that content into Teams, right, David? I hope. So we're moving in that direction to make it more available. So like that video that David just put in there, hopefully we'll have a folder within the math team specifically for MyMathLab kind of how-tos, and we'll be building those things out. So, all right, it's 11:20. We have 10 minutes left, so I want to give Carly and Tim some time to bedazzle us now.
Awesome. I was going to wait and see if Carly wanted to say anything. If not, I can go ahead and start. Carly, you good if I just go?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I mute a little bit because I have like neighborhood kids everywhere yelling. I don't know.
That makes sense.
And I'll jump in if I need to.
Great. All right, let me share my screen here real quick. All right, so it's great to work with you all. This is awesome. I haven't been able to actually get to meet anybody at DMAC. I've been working with Carly for a number of years, but my role as a digital sales specialist is exactly what we're going over right now, just kind of to match your teaching styles, needs, pedagogies to our technology and what would fit for how you want to design the course. I'm an old middle school, high school teacher, not a math teacher, but my master's is in ed tech. This is my love to do. So if you ever want to get into design and what you guys are doing, that's what I love to do. So it's really neat to see the way you guys are power users and incorporating stuff into Blackboard and the tools inside. It's probably some other, like I said, more of a power user than I've seen in a lot of my schools. So I may lean on you all from time to time. So a couple things I'm going to show are new. There'll be things that are coming depending on the book you're in, because they're specific to, just things that are rolling out with new editions. And then a couple things that are live right now you can take advantage of right away. So the first thing that I wanted to show you that we're developing, or that we have been developing, for a lot of our disciplines. Dev Math is the one I'm in right here for Martin Gay. We have it for stats. They're called interactive courses. They're not book specific. They are truly built as an online component. And what that means is, if you see here in my menu here, they have pre-built interactive assignments, mainly around the idea of read a little, do a little, watch a little, kind of like the path that you're setting, that we saw Dan set up inside a Blackboard. So imagine right here, the learning activity is already designed. So when I go in here to this interactive assignment, essentially it's going to walk me through 1.1. And I showed you guys how to assign media. You guys are showing how to design, drag students to it, but there's no way to actually get a grade for that. That's essentially what happens here. This allows you to create. Let me get back to the introduction here. I was previewing this. So it starts with the introduction. They can print out an organizer here to kind of keep track from a written side. And then as I scroll through here, it's going to make me watch this video, and then my next step is I actually have my MyMathLab questions. So this looks just like inside my MyMathLab questions. I still have help. I have everything up here. But this is that key that's forcing them to interact. So it's read a little, watch a little, do a little, and then they'll move through here, and they'll move through their assignments. So these are pre-built. You don't have to do anything to walk them through. So this one has, a couple questions that they have to answer, and then they'll put them into some stuff to read, things to watch. And so those are just some new designs that we have that have been coming out. Very useful for online courses, and just again a way to kind of get in more, just kind of get a way to dive into that material. Actually, just see the system more from just homework. They come in, they just do what counts for a grade. This is a way to actually make the learning count for a grade inside MyMathLab. I'm going to pull up my chats here. Sorry, just see if anything comes up. And so that's the interactive piece. The next piece I want to show you, one thing. If you ever, make sure you check this little bell up here from time to time, because I have a lot of professors that don't realize this is there. This will be quick announcements of anything that's coming out new. Anything that's that's where we're getting ready to post. That if you would have Tim or Carly come in and talk about what's new in MyMathLab, just click on that bell from time to time and see what's in here. So it's just something that a lot of people skip over. All right, so let me get into assignments. So those are our interactives. The next piece that we've been adding is what we call Skill Builder. It's a way to personalize the assignments, and that's a big trend of what we're doing, is how can we personalize and get these assignments to exactly what those students need. And so let me get in here. Sorry, I can get into question one. And so what it means from a skill builder standpoint, so before we used to do, our only way to personalize is you could build a quiz, and then the students would then take that quiz, and then their homework would be personalized to what they as a student did not perform or got incorrect on the quiz. So that way their homework becomes personalized to what they understood and they don't understand. So with Skill Builder, you turn it on, and when the student's in here, they'll see this little button up here. If they want help right away, if they read this question they don't know, let me get into a similar question here. I read this right off the bat and I want help. I've got this help here, but I also can get into Skill Builder, which is going to walk me back into 3 or 4 steps pedagogically that I would need to understand to be able to do this. But the other way that it works is if I get the problem wrong 3 times in a row, then the skill builder is going to say, hey, you may want some help here. It gives them the answer. And when the student clicks into that, then it's going to go back and walk them through some steps. Let me see if I can let me get to another question I had not worked yet, so you can see. This, if you're familiar with other systems that are out there, this is kind of our answer to Alex, kind of that immediate help right within there, but it's going to pull back to, say you're in a college algebra course, skill builder is going to take them back to the pre-algebra or the beginning or intermediate algebra content that they need to understand how to do this problem. That's essentially what's going on here. So right here, oh, what's going on here? I think it's because I started a question. But essentially what would happen if I went through here is you would have a series of steps. Some have 1 or 2, but it's going to walk me back through the series of steps and make me, Socratically work through what I need to understand to get to this question.
So Tim, is this a specific type of question, or is this just built into,
It's built
skill
in,
builder,
yeah.
right?
Yep, so I'll show you. That's why I'm glad you asked that. You led me right to where I was. So what for you to turn it on, if it's available with your book, then when you're in here and you're signing this, or building the assignment, sorry. So right down here, these personalizations. So this one has it automatically turn on. So you have these options you can turn on, and this is where you turn Skill Builder off and on. So again, it just turns it on. Now, this is when I refer to it being similar to Alex. What Alex does is it learns the student's knowledge as they're moving through. Right? That's their claim, right? We're going to only direct them to what they need. Skill Builder works that same way. So for it to perform the right way, you're going to want to, it needs to get a history of the student's learning, right? So you can either start with some type of, chapter assessment, or start even the course with like a minimal assessment, like something so the system learns what that student knows and doesn't knows. So that's a very important point, because if you got in here and played around, you're going to say, well, it's taking me back to things that I don't think are appropriate. That's because the system hasn't learned what the student knows or doesn't know. So it's something you may want to turn on even later in the course, or like I said, assign some type of pre-test to start the course off, so the student has some additional work in there that the system can see.
Cool. 2 quick questions. I think we're down to about 1 minute.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So just really quick, 2 things. Do you have pre-built pre-assessments for faculty they could import that they could use? And so that was a yes, I was assuming. And also,
yes,
does it give a essentially co-requisite report at the end that you could use to show how much skill building students went through and how much it was necessary?
Yes, it's in the grade book. If you want to dive in, there's a ton of info that comes in there from that, how much they're using it, what they're assessed on, shows their weaknesses. Yeah, that's a great question.
Cool. So I love that, because unfortunately, we have entire states mandating co-requisite when really all we needed was a software like this. So
yep, and I can get in. We have all kinds of co-rec solutions as well. So the last thing, this is my surprise for you. I don't know if you've seen this. If you scroll on your course home down, I really want to get to this because I think this might be helpful for online right now with what's going on. We have a software inside MyMathLab called Learning Catalytics. You may have seen it, you may have not. It's down here on the course home at the bottom. You can learn about it right here. But when you get into what this is the easiest explanation for this is clickers on steroids. It allows you to ask 18 different kinds of questions. The answer device is anything Wi-Fi connected. It can be their phone, their laptop, and a tablet. So this is kind of a lot, and it's also got a high level or a lot of grouping features in here where you can put them in groups and they can answer in groups off of their phone. It'll tell them what groups to get into. But what I'm seeing is a lot of people, this is a great way to make a Zoom or a Collaborate an interactive lecture. Well, while you're doing something on Zoom, you can ask them to answer something that will go right into your gradebook inside MyMathLab. So that's why I wanted to show this. But I wanted to show you how some math questions in here. There are multiple choice. There are composite sketch where the student actually just draws a line on their phone. There are mini choice. expressions, numerical. You have a wide range of types of questions that you can use in here. And this, again, feeds right into your MyMathLab gradebook. It's a way for you to create more interactivity, even in a face-to-face classroom. If you have any flippers of a classroom, it's a tool that's there you may not have known was available. And my surprise to you is all of us locked up in our house. I've been using this for online Zoom family activities where we've been doing trivia nights. Everybody answers on their phone. You just share this on the screen. We've been using it for scavenger hunts, things like that. So it's just a fun little tool that you have at your desire if you want to use it for other reasons.
Cool.
All right, I went over on it, but I
awesome.
wanted to make sure I showed you that tool down there.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're a little overtime. Kate, we're the last one of this morning, correct?
One after you. So we're Rachel's going to be presenting on Oxford University Press.
Okay. Well, we will be done. So thank you all for attending, and obviously Kate will follow up with our contact info and other things. So thank you for attending.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to our presenters for taking the time to meet with us today. That was really, really helpful. Lots of good information. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
everybody.